The morning sun filtered through the glass windows of Morton and Associates' 20th floor office as Lisa Martinez adjusted her blazer and checked her reflection in her phone screen. 6 months at one of the city's most prestigious consulting firms had taught her to always look impeccable, even when she felt far from it. The dark circles under her eyes betrayed the countless late nights she'd spent perfecting her latest project, a revolutionary client retention strategy that could transform the company's approach to customer relationships. She'd noticed the warning signs for months. The way her immediate supervisor, Mr. Thompson, would dismiss her ideas in meetings only to present them as his own weeks later. The subtle exclusion from team lunches. The whispered conversations that stopped when she entered the break room. But Lisa wasn't one to give up easily. Growing up in a household where her single mother worked 3 jobs to put her through college had taught her persistence. Today was different, though. She could feel it in the air, in the way her colleagues avoided eye contact as she walked through the office. Her presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. A comprehensive analysis of why clients were leaving and how to keep them. She'd spent weeks gathering data, conducting interviews, and developing solutions that could save the company millions. The conference room was already full when she arrived, 5 minutes early as usual. Mr. Thompson sat at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone with an air of disinterest. The department head, Mrs. Reynolds, was there too, unusual for a routine strategy meeting. Lisa connected her laptop to the projector, her hands steady despite her racing heart. "Before you begin," Mr. Thompson interrupted as she opened her mouth to speak, "I'd like to share some exciting developments." He pulled up a familiar-looking presentation. Lisa's heart sank as she recognized her own graphs, her own data, her own conclusions, all repackaged under the company's standard template with his name on the cover. "As I was telling Mrs. Reynolds yesterday," he continued smoothly, "my analysis shows that we need to completely overhaul our client engagement strategy." Slide after slide, he presented her work as his own, occasionally glancing at Lisa with a smirk that dared her to object. The room felt suffocating. Lisa's mouth went dry as she watched months of her hard work being stolen right in front of her eyes. When Mr. Thompson finally finished, Mrs. Reynolds looked impressed. "Excellent work, Richard. This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need." Actually, Lisa found her voice, standing up slowly. "I can prove that this is my work. I have the original files, the interview recordings, the dated drafts." "Ms. Martinez," Mrs. Reynolds cut her off sharply, "are you accusing a senior manager of plagiarism? That's a serious allegation." "I'm not accusing anyone. I'm stating facts. I can show you the timestamps." "That's enough." Mr. Thompson's face had turned red. "Your insubordination has gone too far. This is exactly why we've been concerned about your performance." Lisa felt the eyes of every person in the room on her. Some looked away uncomfortably, others watched with barely concealed interest in the unfolding drama. Her colleague Jenny, who had helped her compile some of the data, suddenly became very interested in her coffee cup. "My performance?" Lisa's voice remained steady, even as her world seemed to tilt on its axis. "I've brought in 4 new major clients this quarter alone. My customer satisfaction ratings are the highest in the department." The elevator doors closed behind Lisa with a final, decisive click. Security guards flanked her on both sides as they escorted her through the marble-floored lobby, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows that seemed to mock her departure. Her box of belongings felt heavier with each step. A framed photo of her mother at graduation, the small potted succulent that had brightened her desk. A coffee mug with "Dream Big" written in fading letters, a gift from her first client. 6 months of memories reduced to a cardboard box. The receptionist, who usually greeted Lisa with a warm smile every morning, suddenly became very interested in her computer screen. A group of junior associates huddled near the water cooler, their whispers following her like a trail of breadcrumbs. News traveled fast in corporate towers. "I can take it from here," Lisa told the guards as they reached the revolving doors. The younger guard looked uncertain, but Joe, the senior guard who had known her since her first day, gave a subtle nod. "Protocol says we have to escort you to the property line, Ms. Martinez," he said loudly enough for others to hear, then added in a whisper, "Keep your head up. Some doors close so better ones can open." The morning air hit her face as they stepped outside. The street was busy with the usual rush of people hurrying to their offices, coffee cups in hand, wrapped in their own worlds. How many of them had experienced this same walk of shame? How many had stood where she stood now, feeling like their world was crumbling? Her sleek black car pulled up to the curb, and Lisa recognized Mr. Thompson through the tinted windows. He stepped out, straightening his expensive tie, clearly headed to an important meeting. Their eyes met for a brief moment. He smirked, that same self-satisfied expression she'd seen in the conference room. Lisa felt her cheeks burn, but she refused to look away. Instead, she adjusted her blazer and lifted her chin slightly. The box in her arms might as well have been a shield and her dignity armor. As she reached the property line, a small crowd had gathered at the building's windows above. Her former colleagues, probably taking a break from their morning meetings to watch her final exit. The sun glinted off the glass, but she could make out their shapes, their faces pressed against the windows like spectators at a zoo. "Your building access has been revoked," the HR representative who had materialized beside her said mechanically, holding out her hand. "Please hand over your keycard and parking pass." Lisa balanced her box against her hip and fished the items from her pocket. As she placed them in the woman's outstretched hand, she noticed a slight tremor in the HR rep's fingers. Was it guilt? Fear that she might cause a scene? Or perhaps recognition that corporate politics could turn anyone into a casualty? "I'll need you to sign these papers," the woman continued, producing a folder. "Standard termination agreements, non-disclosure forms, and a statement acknowledging receipt of your final paycheck." The irony wasn't lost on Lisa. They were making her sign away her right to speak about their theft of her work while standing on a public sidewalk. She read each document carefully, aware of the growing impatience around her. When she reached the non-compete clause, she paused. "This wasn't in my original contract," she pointed out. The HR representative shifted uncomfortably. "It's standard procedure for situations like this." "You mean when you fire someone for calling out plagiarism?" Lisa's voice was quiet but clear. A passing businessman slowed his walk, clearly interested in the unfolding drama. "Ms. Martinez, please don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." The HR woman's professional mask slipped slightly, revealing genuine discomfort. Lisa studied the document one more time, then signed it with a flourish. She knew enough about contract law to understand that a non-compete clause added during termination, under duress, would hardly stand up in court. "Is there anything else?" Lisa asked, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to crack through. The HR representative shook her head, clutching the folder to her chest like a shield. "Your final paycheck will be deposited by end of day. Please remember that any attempt to contact current employees or clients of Morton & Associates may result in legal action." A taxi honked nearby, making everyone jump. The spell was broken. The security guards retreated, the HR representative hurried back inside, and Lisa was left standing alone on the sidewalk, her life's latest chapter packed in a cardboard box. She could feel the weight of dozens of eyes still watching from above. What did they see? A cautionary tale? A victim? Or perhaps, unknowingly, they were watching the beginning of something much bigger than a simple firing. Lisa took a deep breath and started walking toward the parking garage. Each click of her heels on the pavement felt like a countdown. To what she wasn't sure yet. The morning sun warmed her face, and a slight breeze carried the scent of coffee from a nearby cafe. Life was continuing around her, oblivious to the small drama that had just played out. Her car was parked on the third level of the garage, in the same spot she'd enthusiastically claimed 6 months ago. As she approached it now, juggling her box to reach for her keys, her phone began to vibrate in her pocket. She almost didn't answer it. What else could go wrong today? But something, instinct, fate, or maybe just pure stubbornness, made her shift her box and pull out her phone. The number wasn't familiar, but the area code was. She hesitated for just a moment, then swiped to answer. "Hello." Her voice sounded stronger than she felt. "Is this Lisa Martinez?" A woman's voice, crisp and professional, came through the speaker. "Yes, this is she." Lisa balanced her box on the hood of her car, suddenly alert. "This is Patricia Wong, CEO of Redwood Technologies. I understand you've just left Morton & Associates." Lisa's heart skipped a beat. Redwood Technologies was Morton's biggest client, the one she'd mentioned in her parting shot at the conference room. How had they hurt so quickly? News travels fast, Lisa said carefully. Indeed it does. There was a pause then. I've been following your work for the past few months, Ms. Martinez. Those client retention strategies you developed? Brilliant. The kind of innovative thinking we've been looking for. Lisa's mind raced. Was this really happening? Standing in a parking garage, barely 15 minutes after being escorted from the building. I appreciate the compliment, Ms. Wong, but I'm not sure I understand. Then let me be clear. Patricia Wong's voice took on an edge of excitement. How would you like to run your own division? We're expanding our consulting services, and we need someone with your vision and integrity to lead it. Lisa looked up at the towering office building where just minutes ago she'd been humiliated and fired. From her vantage point in the parking garage, she could still see people gathered at the windows, probably wondering why she hadn't driven away yet. A slow smile spread across her face as she realized, sometimes the universe has a wicked sense of timing. Ms. Wong, Lisa said, straightening her shoulders, I believe we have a lot to talk about. The small coffee shop buzzed with mid-morning activity as Lisa sat across from Patricia Wong, CEO of Redwood Technologies. Just 2 hours had passed since her humiliating exit from Morton and Associates, but already the world felt different. Her cardboard box of belongings sat safely in her car, and her blazer was now draped over the back of her chair as she leaned forward, listening intently. I've been watching you for months, Patricia explained, stirring her green tea. The way you handled our account was impressive, but what really caught my attention was how you spotted inefficiencies no one else noticed. Lisa wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, letting its warmth steady her. I just did what needed to be done. The data was there, someone just needed to look at it properly. Patricia's eyes sparkled. That's exactly what I mean. While everyone else was playing office politics, you were actually solving problems. Do you know how rare that is? Through the coffee shop's windows, Lisa could see the top of her former office building piercing the sky. It looked different from this angle, less intimidating, more like just another glass tower reaching for the clouds. Tell me about this new division, Lisa said, turning her attention back to Patricia. The older woman pulled out a tablet and slid it across the table. We're investing $50 million in developing our own consulting arm. The market's changing. We need to be more than just a tech company. She tapped the screen, bringing up a series of charts. What Morton and Associates has been charging us? We could build something better in-house for half the cost. Lisa studied the numbers, her mind already racing with possibilities. The budget was 3 times what she had to work with at Morton. The freedom to build something from scratch, to do it right. Why me? She asked finally, looking up. I'm sure you could hire any number of experienced executives. Patricia set down her cup with a decisive click. Because you understand both sides now. You've seen how traditional consulting firms work and how they fail. More importantly, you've demonstrated integrity under pressure. That conference room showdown this morning. Word travels fast in our circles. Lisa felt her cheeks warm. You heard about that? One of our VPs was in the building for another meeting. He saw the whole thing. Patricia leaned forward. Standing up to plagiarism, even knowing it might cost you your job? That's the kind of leader we need. The coffee shop's door chimed as new customers entered. Lisa noticed a group of Morton employees among them, probably on their mid-morning coffee run. They spotted her sitting with Patricia Wong, whose face had been on the cover of Business Weekly just last month, and nearly tripped over themselves doing a double take. I should warn you, Lisa said, ignoring the whispers and stares, Morton had me sign a non-compete clause during my termination. Patricia actually laughed. Forced signing during termination? That wouldn't hold up in traffic court, let alone a real legal challenge. Besides, she pulled out another document. We have excellent lawyers. Lisa accepted the folder and began reading. Position: Executive Director of Strategic Consulting. Salary. Her eyes widened at the number. Stock options, full benefits. Complete autonomy to build her team. We need someone who can hit the ground running, Patricia continued. Someone who understands client needs, who can build systems that actually work. The fact that you already know Morton's weaknesses, that's just a bonus. Outside, the city continued its busy pace. Cars honked, people rushed past with phones pressed to their ears, life moved forward. Inside Lisa's mind, pieces were falling into place. All those nights analyzing data, all those client interviews, all that work they'd tried to steal, it hadn't been for nothing. I have conditions, Lisa said, sitting up straighter. Patricia's eyebrows rose with interest. Go on. I want to build this division my way. No corporate politics, no stealing credit, no throwing people under the bus. We succeed or fail based on actual results. Done. I choose my own team. Complete hiring authority. Of course. And I want to focus on sustainable solutions, not just quick fixes to boost quarterly numbers. Patricia's smile widened. Ms. Martinez, you're describing exactly what we want to build. When can you start? Lisa glanced at her watch, the one her mother had given her when she landed her job at Morton. Not even noon yet. Her morning had started with theft and humiliation, but now? How about right now? They shook hands across the table, and Lisa felt the firmness of Patricia's grip, a handshake between equals, not boss and employee. First thing, Patricia said, standing up, let's get you set up at headquarters. Your office is already waiting. As they walked out of the coffee shop, Lisa caught a glimpse of their reflection in the window. Two women, striding purposefully, heads held high. Behind them, the Morton employees were frantically typing on their phones, no doubt spreading the news. Oh, and Lisa. Patricia paused as her driver opened the car door. That client retention strategy you developed. I want to see the full version, the real one, not whatever watered-down version Thompson presented. Lisa smiled as she slid into the back seat of the luxury car. Through the tinted windows, she could see her old office building growing smaller in the distance. 5 minutes ago, she'd been the disgraced employee escorted out by security. Now she was about to become something much more interesting. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. Bad things happen so better things can come. Proud of you, ain't ya? Lisa touched the screen, her vision blurring slightly. She'd call her mother later and tell her everything. For now, though, she had an empire to build. The car turned a corner, and Morton and Associates disappeared from view. Lisa didn't look back. She didn't need to. The future was right in front of her, and it looked nothing like the past. So, Patricia said, opening her tablet again, tell me everything you know about what Morton's been doing wrong. And then tell me how you're going to do it right. Lisa took a deep breath and began to speak. This time, no one would steal her ideas. This time, she was in charge of her own story. And what a story it was about to become. The Redwood Technologies headquarters buzzed with energy as Lisa strode through the sleek lobby 2 weeks after her dramatic exit from Morton and Associates. Her heels clicked confidently on the polished floor as she made her way to her new corner office, a space 3 times larger than her old cubicle. Morning, Ms. Martinez, called out Rick from reception, already familiar with her early arrival times. She waved back, balancing her coffee and a stack of resumes. Her first major task was building her dream team, and she'd been working sunrise to sunset to make it happen. Her office walls were still mostly bare, except for 2 things: her mother's graduation photo and a whiteboard covered in flowcharts and strategies. She'd spent the past 14 days mapping out everything she'd learned at Morton, every flaw, every missed opportunity, every shortcut that cost them client trust. Settling into her ergonomic chair, a thoughtful touch from Patricia, Lisa opened her laptop to review the day's schedule. Her inbox was already filling up with applications. Word had gotten out that Redwood was building something big, and talent was flocking their way. A knock at her door made her look up. Come in. Tom Chen, one of her first hires, poked his head in. You're going to want to see this, he said, waving his tablet. Morton just lost another major client. Lisa pulled up the business news on her screen. Sure enough, Morton and Associates was making headlines again, and not the good kind. Their stock had dropped 12% in 2 weeks, and rumor had it that Mr. Thompson's innovative client retention strategy wasn't working out so well. Have they figured out yet that their strategy has holes in it? Lisa asked, unable to hide a small smile. Tom grinned. You mean the holes you deliberately left in the version they stole? From what I hear, they're still trying to understand why clients aren't responding to their groundbreaking approach. Lisa leaned back in her chair, remembering the real strategy documents safely stored in her personal cloud drive. The complete version, with all the client interviews and actual solutions, was now being implemented at Redwood with a few important upgrades. Meeting in 10 minutes, her assistant's voice came through the intercom. The potential hires are here. Thanks, Maria. Conference room ready? Coffee, water, and those amazing cookies you insisted on, all set. Lisa gathered her materials and headed to the conference room. Through the glass walls, she could see 5 people waiting, all top talent she'd handpicked, some from her old firm. She recognized Jenny, her former colleague who had stayed silent during the conference room disaster. Now, Jenny had a chance to make things right. Thank you all for coming, Lisa began, closing the door behind her. You're here because each of you has something special to offer. But first, let me tell you what we're building. For the next hour, she outlined her vision. No more corporate backstabbing. No more stolen credit. No more choosing politics over performance. The team she was building would focus on real solutions, not quick fixes. I've seen how the old way works, she told them, making eye contact with each person. I've lived it. Now we have a chance to do something different, something better. Jenny raised her hand. Is it true what they're saying? About Morton losing clients? Lisa nodded. They're learning the hard way that shortcuts don't work. Which brings me to our first major project. She clicked to the next slide, revealing a familiar logo. Redwood has acquired 3 smaller consulting firms in the past week. We're going to integrate them into our new division, showing them a better way to operate. The room buzzed with excitement. These were people who'd been waiting for a chance to prove themselves, to work somewhere that valued their contributions. I won't lie to you, Lisa continued. The hours will be long. The work will be challenging. But every single person in this room will get credit for their contributions. Every idea will be heard. Every success will be shared. As she spoke, her phone lit up with a text from Patricia. Board meeting moved up. Big news coming. Need you here. Think about what I've said, Lisa told the group. Offer letters go out tomorrow. For those who accept, we start changing the industry next week. She gathered her things quickly, nodding to Tom to wrap up the meeting. The elevator ride to the executive floor gave her time to straighten her blazer and check her reflection. Sometimes she still couldn't believe how much had changed in 2 weeks. Patricia was waiting outside the boardroom, ready to hear something interesting. Always. Morton's board is getting nervous. Their stock's falling, clients are jumping ship, and rumor has it they're looking for a buyer. Patricia's eyes sparkled. Can to guess who might be interested. Lisa's heart skipped a beat. Are you serious? Dead serious. How would you feel about going back to your old office? This time as the boss? The possibility hit Lisa like a wave. Walking back into that building, not as the disgraced former employee, but as the new executive director. Seeing Mr. Thompson's face when he realized who his new boss was. But more importantly, the chance to fix what was broken. To show everyone still trapped in that toxic environment that there was a better way. When, was all she asked. We move in 3 weeks. Think you can have your team ready? Lisa thought about the talented people in her conference room. About all the others who'd reached out, looking for a chance to work somewhere they could be proud of. About the clients who deserved better service. We'll be ready, she said firmly. But I have one condition. Patricia raised an eyebrow. When we take over, no mass layoffs. Everyone gets a chance to adapt to the new way of doing things. Even Thompson. Showing mercy to those who showed you none? Patricia smiled. That's why you're perfect for this job. As they walked into the boardroom together, Lisa felt a surge of determination. 2 weeks ago, she'd walked out of Morton carrying a box of belongings, feeling like her world had ended. Now she was walking into a room full of executives who respected her, ready to help shape the future of an entire industry. Sometimes, she realized, getting thrown out was the best thing that could happen to you, as long as you were ready to soar when you landed. The morning headlines flashed across every business news channel. Redwood Technologies acquires Morton and Associates in surprise takeover. Lisa watched the scrolling news ticker from her temporary office at Redwood, a cup of coffee cooling forgotten on her desk. 3 months of careful planning had led to this moment. They never saw it coming, Tom said, leaning against her doorframe with his own coffee. Word from inside Morton is that Thompson nearly choked on his morning bagel when he heard the news. Lisa allowed herself a small smile. Any other updates from our inside sources? Chaos, basically. Half the executive team is trying to jump ship, but their contracts make that expensive. The other half is frantically trying to figure out who's going to keep their jobs. He paused. They still don't know you're involved. The past 3 months had transformed Redwood's consulting division. Lisa had built a team of 30 skilled professionals, many of them people who'd been overlooked or undervalued at their previous firms. Together, they'd developed new strategies, won major clients, and proved that success didn't require cutting corners. Her phone buzzed. Patricia Wong calling. "It's time," the CEO said without preamble. "Car's waiting downstairs, ready to make your grand entrance." Lisa looked at her reflection in the office window. She wore a crisp navy suit, not so different from the one she'd worn the day they'd thrown her out. But the woman wearing it was different, stronger, wiser. Let's do this. The drive to Morton and Associates felt surreal. Streets she'd walked 100 times passed by her window as memories flooded back. The coffee shop where Patricia had offered her the job. The parking garage where she'd received that life-changing phone call. "Management meeting in 20 minutes, Tom reported, checking his tablet. "Everyone's required to attend. Thompson's probably planning some kind of rallying speech." "Perfect timing," Lisa murmured. The car pulled up to the familiar building. This time, no security guards waited to escort her out. Instead, Redwood's transition team met them in the lobby, along with Patricia Wong herself. "The paperwork's all signed," Patricia announced. "Morton and Associates is officially part of Redwood Technologies. Shall we go upstairs and break the news?" The elevator ride was silent, heavy with anticipation. Lisa could feel her heart pounding, but her hands were steady. The doors opened onto the 20th floor, her old home, soon to be her new kingdom. They could hear Thompson's voice carrying from the main conference room. "And I want to assure everyone that this acquisition will not affect our core values and leadership." Patricia caught Lisa's eye and nodded. Together, they pushed open the conference room doors. The reaction was immediate. Thompson's voice died mid-sentence. Faces turned, jaws dropped, eyes widened in recognition. Jenny, still at her old seat, actually gasped out loud. "Good morning, everyone." Patricia's voice filled the stunned silence. "I'm Patricia Wong, CEO of Redwood Technologies, and this," she gestured to Lisa, "is your new executive director." Lisa stepped forward, feeling the weight of every stare. "Hello again," she said simply. Thompson's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. This is impossible," he sputtered. "She can't. There's a non-compete clause." "That non-compete clause you forced me to sign during my termination." Lisa kept her voice level. "The one that's completely unenforceable under state law, that clause?" Mrs. Reynolds, who'd sat in judgment of Lisa that fateful day, seemed to shrink in her chair. The HR representative who'd handled Lisa's termination was suddenly very interested in her notebook. "Let me be clear," Lisa continued, moving to the front of the room. "Things are going to change around here. But not in the way you might think." She clicked to bring up her presentation, a real one this time, with her name proudly displayed on the cover. "First, no one is getting fired today or tomorrow. Every person in this room will have the opportunity to prove themselves under the new system. Even you, Mr. Thompson." The tension in the room shifted slightly. Shoulders relaxed, breathing resumed. "Second, we're going to implement a real client retention strategy. One based on actually serving our clients, not just charging them more for less." She clicked through to a familiar slide, the one Thompson had stolen months ago. "You might recognize this, but you haven't seen the full version." For the next 30 minutes, Lisa laid out her vision: real teamwork, real innovation, real results. As she spoke, she could see the change in people's faces. Hope replacing fear, enthusiasm replacing resignation. Finally, she concluded, every single person in this room has value to offer. Your ideas matter. Your work matters. And from now on, you'll get credit for your contributions. The silence that followed was different from the shocked quiet of her entrance. This was the silence of possibility, of potential unleashed. "Ms. Martinez." A junior consultant raised her hand, one of the new hires Lisa had never met. "Is it true that Redwood's consulting division has doubled its client base in 3 months?" Lisa smiled. Actually, we've tripled it. When you do things right, word gets around. Thompson stood up abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. This is ridiculous. I won't stand for this. This career development opportunity, Lisa suggested mildly. The choice is yours, Mr. Thompson. Stay and learn a better way to work, or leave and find another firm that matches your current management style. The laughter that rippled through the room was gentle but unmistakable. Thompson's face flushed as he sat back down, defeated. All right, everyone, Lisa said, closing her laptop. Take the rest of the day to process this news. Tomorrow, we start fresh. My door will be open to anyone who wants to talk about their role in the new organization. As people filed out, Lisa caught snippets of conversation. Excitement, relief, plans already forming for projects long suppressed under the old regime. Jenny lingered behind. I'm sorry, she said quietly, for not speaking up that day. Lisa touched her arm gently. Sometimes it takes seeing someone else stand up to realize we can do it too. She smiled. Want to help me reorganize the client service teams? Jenny's answering smile was bright enough to light up the room. From the conference room windows, Lisa could see her old parking spot, where everything had changed with one phone call. Now she had a reserved space with her name on it, right next to the entrance. Ready to see your new office? Patricia asked from the doorway. Lisa looked around the conference room one last time, remembering that horrible morning that now felt like a lifetime ago. Actually, she said, I think I'll take Thompson's old office. It has a better view of the future. 3 months into her new role as executive director, Lisa sat in her office, formerly Thompson's, reviewing the latest quarterly reports. The changes were remarkable. Client satisfaction was up 87%. Employee retention had improved by 65%, and the innovative strategies she'd implemented were already showing results in the bottom line. A knock at her door made her look up. Come in. Thompson stood in the doorway, looking distinctly uncomfortable in his new business casual attire, one of the many changes Lisa had implemented to create a more relaxed, creative workplace. Do you have a minute? He asked, his voice lacking its former arrogance. Of course, have a seat. Lisa gestured to the chair across from her desk, the same chair where she'd once sat during countless uncomfortable meetings. Thompson settled in, fidgeting with his tablet. I've been working with the client service team, like you suggested, and, well, they've come up with some interesting ideas. Lisa leaned forward, genuinely curious. After the takeover, Thompson had surprised everyone by accepting a position as a senior consultant, a significant step down, but one that kept him employed. More surprising was how he'd adapted to the new system. Show me what you've got, she said. For the next 20 minutes, Thompson walked her through his team's proposals. Their ideas were solid, innovative, and completely original. No stolen work, no stepped on toes, just genuine collaboration. This is excellent work, Lisa said when he finished. The whole team contributed to this? Thompson nodded, a hint of pride creeping into his expression. Even the junior members had input. Turns out when you actually listen to people, they have good ideas. Lisa couldn't help but smile at the irony. Speaking of listening, how are you finding the new management training program? After the takeover, Lisa had instituted mandatory leadership development courses for all supervisors. The program focused on emotional intelligence, collaborative decision-making, and ethical business practices, everything the old Morton had lacked. It's enlightening, Thompson admitted. I never realized how much damage the old way of doing things caused, not just to the business, but to people. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the glass walls, they could see employees gathering around someone's desk, clapping and cheering. Lisa recognized Jenny's workspace at the center of the celebration. What's happening out there? Thompson asked. Jenny's team just landed the Peterson account, Lisa explained. We're celebrating their success. The Peterson account? But they've been with our competitors for years. They were impressed by our new approach. Lisa stood up. Come on, let's join the celebration. They walked out to find Jenny's team sharing a cake that someone had quickly ordered from the bakery downstairs. The atmosphere was festive, collaborative, nothing like the cutthroat environment that had existed before. Ms. Martinez, Jenny called out, beaming. We used your client engagement strategy, but with some modifications we developed as a team. Would you like to see our presentation? I'd love to. Lisa turned to Thompson. Would you like to join us? Your experience with the Peterson industry could be valuable. Thompson looked startled at being included, but nodded. As Jenny's team walked them through their innovative approach, Lisa watched her former boss gradually engage, offering insights and asking thoughtful questions. Later that afternoon, Lisa had another visitor, Mrs. Reynolds, the former department head who had supported Thompson in stealing Lisa's work. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Mrs. Reynolds said, settling into the visitor's chair. About that day, about everything that happened. Lisa waited patiently. Over the past 3 months, she'd had many such conversations with former adversaries. Each one was a step toward healing the toxic culture that had pervaded the old Morton. I knew what Thompson was doing, Mrs. Reynolds continued. Not just to you, but to others. And I let it happen because it was easier than standing up against it. The system encouraged that kind of behavior, Lisa said gently. But we're building something different now. Mrs. Reynolds straightened in her chair. That's actually why I'm here. I'd like to help develop the new ethics training program. I think my experience could serve as a valuable lesson. Lisa smiled warmly. I think that's an excellent idea. As Mrs. Reynolds left, Lisa walked to the window. The view from Thompson's old office really was better. She could see the whole city stretching out before her, full of possibility. Her phone buzzed with a message from Patricia. Board meeting tomorrow. Bring your expansion plans. They're going to love this. Lisa looked out at the transformed office. People were working together, sharing ideas, celebrating successes. The fear and tension that had once filled these rooms had been replaced by energy and innovation. A young intern approached her desk, clutching a folder. Ms. Martinez? I had some ideas about improving our client feedback system. Would you have time to look at them? Of course, Lisa said, gesturing to the chair. Tell me everything. As she listened to the intern's enthusiastic presentation, Lisa thought about how far they'd come. The company that had once thrown her out was now a place where every voice was heard, where success was shared, and where innovation flourished. The intern finished her presentation with a nervous smile. What do you think? Is it too ambitious? Lisa thought about that day in the conference room, when her own ambitious ideas had been stolen and twisted. How different things might have been if someone had simply listened. It's exactly ambitious enough, she said. Let's get your team together and make it happen. The intern's face lit up as she hurried off to gather her colleagues. Through the glass walls, Lisa could see Thompson working with his team, Mrs. Reynolds discussing the ethics program with HR, and Jenny's group still celebrating their success. This, she realized, was what victory really looked like. Not revenge or dominance, but transformation. The creation of something better from the ashes of what had been broken. Her phone buzzed again. A text from her mother. How's my boss lady doing today? Lisa smiled as she typed her reply. Making changes, Mama, one day at a time. She looked out at her transformed kingdom once more before turning back to her work. There were still challenges ahead, still improvements to be made. But now they would face them together as a team. The future had never looked brighter. 1 year had passed since that fateful morning when Lisa had been escorted from Morton and Associates. Now, standing at a podium in the company's largest conference room, she looked out at the sea of faces before her. The annual company meeting had drawn employees from all levels, filling every seat and spilling into the hallway. When I walked out of this building a year ago, Lisa began, her voice steady and clear, carrying a box of my belongings. I thought it was the worst day of my life. I was wrong. It turned out to be the best. A ripple of knowing laughter moved through the crowd. The story had become legend within the company, the fired employee who returned as their boss and transformed everything. But this isn't just my story, she continued. It's all of ours. Every person in this room has contributed to the incredible changes we've seen this year. Behind her, the presentation screen displayed their achievements. Revenue had doubled. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. Client retention had reached 98%, but the numbers didn't tell the whole story. Lisa clicked to the next slide, showing photos from the past year. The holiday party where executives and interns had mingled freely. The company picnic where Thompson had surprised everyone by winning the three-legged race with his newest team member. The late-night pizza sessions where breakthrough ideas were born. "Remember how it used to be?" she asked. The closed doors, the whispered conversations, the fear of speaking up. Heads nodded throughout the room. Some of the longest-serving employees exchanged knowing looks. "Now look at us." Lisa gestured to the room. "Open doors, open minds. Open communication. We've proven that success doesn't require stepping on others. In fact, we're more successful because we lift each other up." Jenny, now a department head herself, stood up. "Can we share some numbers from the employee survey?" Lisa nodded, stepping aside as Jenny took the podium. The transformation in her former colleague was remarkable. Gone was the timid woman who'd stayed silent during that horrible meeting a year ago. "Workplace satisfaction is up 95%, Jenny announced. Stress-related sick days are down 70%. And my personal favorite, 89% of employees say they feel valued and heard." The room burst into applause. Lisa noticed Thompson in the back, clapping along with everyone else. His journey from antagonist to team player had been one of the most surprising developments of the year. "But we're not done yet," Lisa said, returning to the podium. "Today, I'm excited to announce our next chapter." The room hushed in anticipation. Even Patricia Wom, sitting in the front row, leaned forward slightly. "Redwood Technologies is expanding its consulting division. We're opening new offices in 3 cities, and every one of them will be run according to the principles we've developed here. The Morton Method, as it's becoming known in the industry." More applause, this time mixed with excited murmurs. Everyone knew what this meant. Opportunities for advancement, chances to lead, new challenges to tackle.